Hey, I'm Sammy. Looks like I arrived in Shanghai exactly September 8th, 2008. Before that, I used to come to China on vacation. Did that for about 7 years. Usually a 2-week trip every time. So when I finally decided to move to Shanghai, I didn't know much about it. I just thought it was the most international city in China. It's where to go if you want to earn some money. So I moved here in 2008. Didn't know much about Shanghai at all. The city, I didn't see much of the city at all. I kind of stayed in my own little area. I was afraid I'd get lost. And then sometime in 2009, I was looking for some job opportunities. I saw an ad. This guy posted an ad driving a sidecar around Shanghai and talk about the city. His name was Thomas. So I met him, and basically he said he's gonna pay me to drive around Shanghai and see the places I want to see and talk about the things I want to talk about. I said, if you're gonna pay me for this, I'll do it. So that's when I started learning more about Shanghai, getting into the old city. The French concession was still kind of new territory for me. I thought I'd get lost in the French concession. Well, I kind of thought I was going to get lost in the old city too. And one day, one of the insiders took me down one of these routes on a tour. He was leading the tour and I was following with some other passengers. And that's when I really started to learn about the city. Really started to learn about the French concession, the old city, the real Shanghai. And these spots became my favorite spots in Shanghai, especially the old city. Seeing these small roads just thriving with people, all kinds of people walking around, riding bicycles around, just sitting around, selling vegetables and fruits and just doing their thing. And the old city has always been my favorite place in Shanghai to this day. So basically riding around Shanghai in a sidecar was absolutely the coolest thing to do. I mean, the sound of the engine, you got the feel of the city, because not only are you in an old city, but you're in this old historic vehicle, so you can hear it, feel it, and just, I mean, words can't describe it. You just got to get on a sidecar and see what it's like. I think it was somewhere around the early 2000s where Shanghai said they're not going to allow Shanghai license plates to be put on sidecar motorcycles. But the existing motorcycles that were in the city, those were okay. They already had the license plate on them. It's just no new license were allowed to be put on these sidecars. And in China, they have a rule with motorcycles that once you put a Shanghai license plate on a motorcycle, it's only good for 13 years. The license plate is still good, but you have to put it on a new motorcycle. But since Shanghai made this policy of no Shanghai license plates on sidecars, you can keep that license plate, you just were not allowed to put it on a new sidecar. Yeah, we used to drive down there on the sidecars. Fuck. Alright, so we're getting into the old city, and this is exactly the same street I was talking about. It's one of the first tours I did when I was following the Insider on my sidecar, and he took me down this street right here. It's a very narrow street. It was even more narrow at the time because at that time there was more people here on the streets, sitting on the streets, bicycles going by, and this is where I really fell in love with the old city. So at that time, these streets were just thriving with people. They had their shops on the sidewalks, into the streets, selling everything you could imagine. And it was just like you could really feel like you were in Shanghai, you were in an old part of the city. So now, as we're going down the street and you see all these windows and doors blocked up, as it is right now, it's really heartbreaking because, I mean, these were my favorite streets to drive on, to ride my sidecar on, and even my Jeep today. And it's like the life of Shanghai has been taken away from these streets and it's slowly disappearing. I mean, this street that we're on right now was so packed with people, cars and not cars, bicycles and people, that I could barely drive my sidecar down this street right here. And now it's just wide open. I mean, it was so cool to drive down these streets and just to wave to the people, and they would see me on my sidecar and think, what is this foreigner doing on this old... I think they thought it was some kind of tractor or something, because it was definitely not a common thing to cruise on. And I remember cruising down these streets, and if I did see another foreign person, I would think, are they lost? You know, what are they doing here? Because, I mean, I was kind of worried in the beginning that I would get lost on these streets, or my sidecar would break down and I wouldn't be able to tell someone where I was, because it was just a maze. But after cruising up and down these streets for a couple years or so, it was no problem for me, because I knew eventually I was going to find my way out. I knew it'd be fun. All right, so here's another cool spot right down the street from the former residence of Wang Yiting that I used to drive past. And there was always some old people sitting out front. I would always wave to them as I was going past. This old piece right here, I'm not sure if I fully understand them, but they might have said it was something like a flag post or something right now. And if I look at this plaque, it says ruins of Chao Yiqi's residence. I don't know what that means, but I mean, Shanghai is this city that if you don't stop and smell the roses, you're not going to enjoy it. So if you don't go down this street or down this alley, you're not going to see anything. So you've really got to cruise around and explore this city to see what it really has. I mean, if you're just in a taxi or in a car going from point A to point B, you're not going to see anything. You got to get out there, walk around, look around, and there's just so much to see. I mean, right now you can see all these windows and doors that are boarded up and blocked off, and they're going to take these areas down, but I still think in the future there's going to be many places in Shanghai that are really cool and interesting to see. You just got to get out there, explore, and find them. Okay, so as we get further down this street, I would always come to this corner area right here, and almost every single time I would see this sharply dressed man in a nice suit and a nice hat, something you'd see like back in America in the 1930s. And I'd always wave to this guy. He was always so friendly to me. And he's been here ever since. So Katya had written a book and documented all the different streets throughout Shanghai. So she had given us a book to give to him. So it's down these streets that we used to cruise on our sidecars. And in the very beginning, I didn't know too much about the old city, so I would kind of stay on the same road so I wouldn't get lost. And then it was coming down this road that I noticed this building right here a couple of times. And I thought, well, this one looks kind of interesting. And I didn't know much about it. So then after driving past it a few times, I used to stop in the front of it. And I was such a newbie at the time that I didn't know is this a shurikomin or what is it? But after driving past it a bunch of times, I decided to kind of venture down into the alleyway, which at that time was open. So I would kind of venture in there a few feet, and then the next time a little bit further, until I started exploring all throughout this place called Catalpa Garden. Then later I learned it was called Catalpa Garden, and I was able to meet some of the residents that live there, and they invited me inside their home, were showing me around, telling me stories about it. And even further back into there was one area that was some type of metal factory. So you have these gates with these red communist stars, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I mean, the red communist stars, I mean, that's China right there. So later I learned that this was the former residence of Wang Yiting, who was he was an artist and possibly a philanthropist too, I'm not sure. But he was very famous at the time, so famous that he was able to have a guest stay in his guest quarters for one night. And that was Albert Einstein and his wife. So many of the times I would come here, some of the locals would try to tell me stories, some locals just walking on the street, and they would tell me the story that, yeah, Albert Einstein stayed here one night.
Maybe sometime before I can't remember.
He is the one who filmed it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I saw lots of your pictures. You operate a travel agency.
Kind of, yeah.
You have lots of different bikes, like 3 wheels. So.
You can tell this book right here, Katya. This is one of Katya's books, and it's all the different neighborhoods in the old city here. So Katya wants to
Cartel 送给您的书
give her this book.
Cartel 他说这本书里面就是有所有的这个上海的老城区都在里面的 Cartel 送给您的。
好的，好的，好的，好的，谢谢，谢谢。
有你的名字在里面。
Thank you。
也有您的名字在里面。
有我的名字。
Where？
这个就是人家帮我写的《文物斗士朱香琪》。
哦，文物斗士朱香琪。
因为我听说了。
Somebody named me the cultural relics fighter 朱香琪。Fighter。I'm a fighter.
但是现在他们不重视我，我也没办法了。
Nobody paid attention to me. So I have no way to save this place.
反正就是这个，大概你看一看好了，这个情况好吧？我因为年纪也大了，也没有这个精力了。现在。
朱老师是更希望，其实乔家院被政府收走，还是能够按照原样做一个博物馆，或像那个新天地的五里香博物馆那样子的东西，是吧？就有原物在的那种博物馆那样子。
不是，最好是恢复原样子。如果这个也是比较要文化性质的，不要商业味道太重的。
So Miss Zhu's goal is government should restore this place as it was, like its original image, not a commercial property, but how it was with culture at the core, not a commercial place, not the bar, not the Starbucks.
Yeah. 不要商业味道太重啊！不要为了赚钱什么，里面开一些什么酒吧什么。
Not for profit making. but to keep the cultural aroma。
你说好的好的，小张，
我们都觉得用。